I think it's time for an update, an MMT update. How we doing? Back in December, I did a video that many of you might recall entitled, "We Won! Modern Monetary Theory Got Everything Right." Everything! In that video, I talked about how MMT correctly predicted a whole bunch of stuff while all of the mainstream economics community, including those clueless Austrians, got everything completely wrong. None of them saw anything coming, or should I say, what they did see coming never happened. On the other hand, we saw everything that happened and we called it right from the get-go. From the decline in Treasury yields following that stupid Standard & Poor's downgrade, to how quantitative easing was not going to be inflationary, to how we were not going to be the next Greece, and how the austerity in Europe would lead to higher deficits, not lower deficits, along with many, many other things. We got it all right. Every single thing. And the others, well, they got it all wrong. And I'm not just talking about wrong, but really, really embarrassingly wrong. People like Bill Gross, the bond king, who shorted the Treasury market last year and tweeted, "Who's going to buy them now?" Remember that? He was wondering aloud, I don't know, maybe he was talking his position. He was worried that there'd be no one to buy treasuries once the Fed ended its quantitative easing program last June. He's the bond king, and he doesn't even know how rates are set. And there are others whose names I won't mention because they're not even worth mentioning, but they've been totally and permanently wrong on interest rates, on austerity, on the dollar, on the economy's performance, on bonds, on stocks, on inflation, on commodities, on gold, and many other things. And there we were, correct, on all of those things. All right, now we're more than halfway through 2012, so I thought it would be a good idea to update you on some of the other MMT calls made this year, all of which we got right again, no surprise. And I say no surprise not to be smug or cocky, but because it's normal. If you understand the true nature of how the monetary system works, which is what MMT is all about, then making these calls should be relatively easy. Just like if you know that adding oxygen to a fire will make it burn hotter, or vice versa. But before I start, I have to give a shout out to my friend and mentor, Warren Mosler, who's also one of the founders of MMT. Warren is a brilliant and incredibly humble guy and the most unselfish person I know. And believe me, I could say this because a lot of times I steal his calls without giving him attribution, but he never gets mad at me. But I want to say that Warren deserves a lot of credit, and he's a wonderful leader, and we should all be really proud to have him as one of the heads of our movement. So let me just say, you go, Warren, go! And by the way, the guy doesn't get 1/10 of the credit he deserves. And this is meant for all these stupid mainstream media outlets out there who never put him on the air. I'm talking about you, CNBC and Fox and CNN and MSNBC and PBS and NBC and ABC, CBS, all of them, National Geographic, Bravo, Spike, all of them, and whoever else I left out. You're all a bunch of idiots for not putting Warren on the air. But I digress. Anyway, I just had to get that off of my chest. Okay, you ready? Here we go. The 2012 predictions that MMT made, which all came true. First, early on in the year, we talked about, and it was actually in my 2012 annual report, the decline in government spending versus last year, and how that would mean slower economic growth, which is exactly what happened. It would mean lower commodity and gold prices and lower interest rates, higher bond prices, which is exactly what happened too. Now that was followed by a call back in June where we actually said stocks had hit a bottom, and so did the euro, and that was in the midst of all these Eurozone worries, but it came when Jean-Claude Trichet said that the ESM should be granted a banking license. That comment was followed up by the ECB, Mario Draghi, stating that it would do whatever was necessary to save the euro, which, by the way, that echoed what Warren Mosler had been saying all along, that as long as the ECB wrote the check, that the euro would survive and no country would exit. Everyone else had been looking for a euro collapse or a banking panic or Greece to pull out. Day in and day out, CNBC was scaring the daylights out of people by making it seem like some country was about to go bust or some bank was on the verge of a panic. Shame on you, CNBC. The markets were tanking, but we were saying that the ECB could and would continue to write the check. Some people who were even high-level policymakers questioned whether or not the ECB had the resources to backstop anything. They were basically saying that the ECB didn't have any money. What a ridiculous comment, and it's another example of how the mainstream economic community totally and fundamentally lacks understanding about simple things like central banking. Well, we got it all right. We called it. Greece didn't pull out. No bank went bankrupt. Countries kept paying their debts even as rates climbed up to levels that the experts believe would bring on default. How did we know? Because MMT understands the monetary system. We understood that the ECB was the only one capable of writing the check, and it would. No one else understood that, which is really unbelievable. And with the euro, day in and day out, we were hearing predictions of the euro going to parity. None of the Austrians or anyone else in the economic mainstream got this right either. Not a single one. All right, getting back to the U.S., here was another thing that we said. We said that despite the slowdown in government spending, the deficit in the U.S. was high enough to sustain modestly positive economic growth and a new credit expansion. That's exactly what's been going on. Others kept calling for a recession. We even called the improvement in the U.S. housing sector and in construction and said that it would be slow but sustained. And that's exactly what's going on. And as good as these calls were, nothing even comes close to our calls on interest rates. Where all the geniuses were saying treasuries were a bubble and they were shorting them day in and day out, we kept saying that treasuries would continue to rally and that rates would fall as the Fed stuck to its highly accommodative monetary policy. We also said that fears of this being inflationary or hyperinflationary were totally wrong and misinformed. We called out the low interest rate policy for what it was. Not hyperinflationary, but rather deflationary. Nobody else said that. And that's because of its effect on taking interest income out of the economy. And some people are finally starting to recognize this. I mean, I've seen some academic articles posted up on the internet, some actually from inside the Fed itself and other central banks. You know, there's a lot more, and I can go on, but I think you get the picture. MMT has no equal. We're the only ones who got everything right while none of the others did. And MMT will continue to be the most prescient forecasting model precisely because it looks at things through the prism of a true understanding of the way our monetary system works. The others simply don't. They're based on belief, not truth. So in summary, let me just close with a line from the movie Wall Street. The first movie, Wall Street, which I think was better, in my opinion, than the second Wall Street. And it's where Gordon Gekko says, and I'll take a little literary license here, "The others are just throwing darts at a dartboard, sport. I bet on sure things, 'cause I use MMT. And there's no question MMT is the surest thing you're going to get. You're either with us or you're lost. The choice is yours. Anyway, that's it for now. See you next time. This is Mike Norman saying bye-bye.